Welcome to Warblog. Today we're looking at the Dongo Conflict, Democratic Republic of Congo, 2009. Went on for just over a month. Essentially, the locals rose up over some conflict over the fishing rights on the Ubangi River. And they basically take Dongo, they take a couple of other places, including Nyeli and another place, I think it's Yamamba. Can't remember which one it is, but I probably use other places. They take a lot of other places. The violence sort of spreads downriver. So basically, that's the situation. The DR Congo then moved to suppress the uprising, the rebellion, and the UN also intervened. It's interesting, really, because when you read it first, it sort of mentions that 10 armed fishermen started this. So it took 10 men with guns to start this sort of uprising. It culminated in about 168,000 people being displaced. So, I think when it comes down to the instigation of these sorts of things, this is a key example numerically of that. It always amazes me that, when you conceptualize what happens, I think the prime example of that is the Cuban Revolution, because Che Guevara basically landed in Cuba with about 200 men. Well, that's obviously a lot of men to get, but in many regards it's not. These mercenary units, Blackwater, they can muster that many men up. So if you can get 10 angry fishermen, you can start a revolution. 10 angry armed fishermen, etc. And so, I think there's a general myth or consensus that only nation states do these things, and this is slightly different in that, unlike, say, the Boko Haram, which was more religious based, the Islamic State, which is also sort of more religious, ideologically based, this was fishing rights, which is important to them, presumably, because it's their income, and other things, like pensions and general living standards. But this is a fairly interesting example of that sort of mechanism in place. One other little thing, just to say, I've now stopped putting refugees in the order of battle list, mainly because it starts to look stupid, really, because this thing, there's probably about 50 refugees. Each one of these has like 2 refugees that spring out of it. This one has 5. So there's quite a lot. And so that worked for all other games. So anything that has refugees, you won't get that in the order of battle, because you can't use them. They're just there to sort of be removed. So that's that. So this is basically another one of those refugee games, and the intention is you just take them to the edge of the board and remove them. So we're going to start off by, I have played this through already, but I've made some adjustments, so I added 2 units. And I guess we're just going to start off by taking Dongo, and there you can see the refugees appear. But I'm also going to take Dongo again, because I sort of want to be active, because it's quite a big objective. So that's that first turn. So the Congo player, obviously they're going to try and get their refugees away from the conflict. There's no refugee points. So we've got another guy appear here. I mean, it's not a difficult decision, but it's not easy, is it? I mean, I'm just sort of, what do I do? I think I'm going to go to Guna. they're going to take that. So that's that. So there's no more refugees to put on the map. More refugees. I think I'm going to take this because I can get there. There's more refugees. They're busy taking Dongo. So the refugees are going to run away. So we've got another unit appear there. It's appeared there. I guess we can move into here and create more refugees. So what you should start to sort of observe, it's getting quite busy. There's quite a lot of refugees sort of being created who are obviously fleeing the area. Okay, I think that's everything moved. Right, so this guy can in theory now leave the board. Yes, so that's sort of working. This was working yesterday, and I got up in the middle of the night to fix it. Actually, ages. It wasn't difficult, but I did it. But it was sort of, I didn't know what was wrong. Okay, so we've got this other guy here, look, so we can go into there, creating more refugees, blah blah blah. So everyone is now on a town, so we're basically taking all these towns, but now we have the Congo forces entering the border. We'll get them off the board. It's not as chaotic as it was yesterday, because yesterday I couldn't actually take them off the board, and so there was absolutely tons of these guys floating around. Right. I can only get so far up this road. Okay, so we're taking Dongo now. So I guess we can take Monzaya. And Yeli. Do we want to support that, or do we want to move over to Yamamba or to Ghana? I think if we cross the river, we're going to end our turn. So I'm going to go here. Hang on. Before we get to Ghana. I think I will. Okay, so the Congo forces. See, one of the things I think is interesting about this is that the map is slightly confused because of all these refugees. Even though I've taken some off, it's still quite confused. And it does actually affect your thinking, because you're thinking, well, what can I do here? Obviously you're thinking of building a front. Well, we can defend these villages now, or to some extent, maybe not these ones, but, you know, because we've got the forces, so we can sort of almost create a line. I won't bother choosing the colour. We can almost create a defensive line like that. Not like that, but there, moving up along this road. It's only these areas that we don't control. Exactly how to do that, I don't know. Because it's not as simple as it sounds. And I don't know how... These things do have a punch. So what I did yesterday was went up here and I actually took this out and destroyed it. It wasn't easy, but I got there in the end. I'm sort of thinking, actually I might go this way. The problem I had actually, which is interesting, was that I had a massive stalemate around here. I just couldn't get through here. So I'm going to do that earlier on, I think, and get across this river. When I say I couldn't get through here, I couldn't get through here because there were irregulars in there. Now they can get there this turn, possibly, but they're not because they haven't taken that yet. So but he's going to be active, but he won't be able to get all the way down there. But he could possibly start a threat to sort of, you know, block the advance of these troops, although this road will still be open. So where to go? Well, we could take that, because we can move him into there and then him down to here. So let's do that. Should be able to just get straight through here. So it shouldn't have affected the movement, but it has. So we're not in there. So we sort of failed to do that, really. Oh well. I suppose I should have thought in advance and tried to push things as far south as possible. But the thing is, I don't think they were thinking that the troops would come in. They were just too busy, you know, engaging in the uprising randomly around Dongo and the fishing rights. So it's not a conventional war in that sense. But anyway, so I am actually going to get across this river because it was difficult before. Let's get the refugees out of the way. Okay. So there's only these units left to move. So I'm going to commit them this side of the river. Now I've got helicopters, but I'm not going to use them at this turn because well, I'm thinking because I don't want to use them up, but I've got so many, I don't think that's actually a limiting problem. But if I hit that, and he basically won't move, so if I hit that, he'll probably just sit there and recover. The only thing that I could do is to hit something that I think might move, for example that, but it's just not worth it really. I'd rather hit them, I'd rather use the helicopters when I know that I'm going to do an attack in the same turn. Okay. Oh. Here's the UN troops. But I'm actually thinking of doing some sort of rules where it's a combined auto-generation of insurgents, irregulars. I'm not going to go into any details, I'm trying to concentrate on these two things at the same time for some reason at the moment. But basically, it would work from the point of view that there would be, basically, to create some rules that that mean if you were to take this village, then every 5 turns it would create an irregular. And the premise being that you would start off with, say, protesters, they would protest. So, for example, if this village was 2, and you had protesters in there, it would take them 5 turns to capture it, and once they captured it, it would start to produce irregulars. But this wouldn't be a good one because it's not got the village logo on it. I was actually thinking towns, actually. So they take this town. Suppose we had 5 protester units and they all went into Dongo. Well, it'd take them 2 turns to capture it, probably 3, because it would go 5 to 5 to 5 to 0 to 0 to 5. So it might be 11, I don't know. But they'll capture it, and then it would start every 5 turns or something. It would create irregulars. So when you apply that to all the other maps, you would have the same sort of situation. So in the Hong Kong riots, for example, certain elements of Hong Kong might be 80, so they're not really going to take it. But in theory, if they took an area of Hong Kong, then they could then start producing irregular units, which would be combat units to fight the police. Same thing in Venezuela and Iraq and Iran even. So obviously, you then in a situation where you can't allow them to take the town, because once they've taken it, so you can push these protesters out quickly, and then you'd sort of almost say, well, okay, we'll push them out, we're sort of taking it back, but then you've got to go off, get another one, and then come back and start taking it. And so it's a cat and mouse game of, making sure they can't take towns. And another thing that I'm working on, well, 2 things, is custom rules. I'm actually been thinking about it, it's not that difficult. Custom rules for certain events, so that would be custom code for each game that would be attached to the game module that would then apply. And these could be certain things like, if you take this village, then you will get 3 units. And this is a very specific rule. Other things that I'm actually thinking about are similar to custom rules. I just forgotten now. It's just on the tip of my tongue. But there are quite a few other things I've actually been thinking about doing. Obviously the CAD stuff, but a couple of other things. Terrain heights. Now that I've got my new editing tool in, thinking of putting in terrain elevations, and the way that would work, it wouldn't affect line of sight because I can't really do that, but it would sort of, so if this was a higher terrain than this one, I would basically overlay a dark alpha image, so it would be darker, and if it was lower, it would have a white one, so it would appear lighter. So essentially you would have three terrain types. You would have regular terrain, lower terrain, and higher terrain. So you could actually have everything as low, and then you could have a band of regular, and then a band of high. And so that's another thing that I'm sort of thinking of doing. I wish I could figure out other things. It's quite significant. It's sort of something that's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, so we've now got almost quite peculiarly a front line look with UN support. So I've thought of a lot of things actually. One of the other things that I have actually thought about is, well, obviously it's more the CAD, the electronic warfare, but with the actual, so the CAD stuff is I've already mentioned, but the electronic warfare is sort of on top of that, and it also applies to. That was the thing I was thinking about. Basically, this would be more the Vietnam side, but it would also be here. You've got another element of, and I don't want to make it too gamified, but basically the concept of hearts and minds, which I don't like as a term, but just to get to the point. So you would have villages, and they would all have certain. So this would be under control of the Labella rebels, obviously, but essentially these places are not. But they will still have basically hearts and minds, and I wouldn't call it that. I've been thinking of something else, but they would have a quality factor to them, defining how much they were on the side of one side or another. You know, whether they were favouring the Congos, the Congo forces, or the Bella rebel forces. And so, what you would then have to do, you would have to then send your troops around. You would then have to allocate that level of activity. Now, I don't want to make this too complicated, but actually the way I thought about it is quite simple. So every one of these places would have its own separate factor. So if you were, and these would change randomly, and they could be affected by the programmatical things that I was mentioning. So you could have villages that would suddenly turn rebel, and once they turned rebel, they could start producing irregular units. And or protester units, something along those lines. And that was the big thing that I was thinking about. And I think that, you know, this is sort of something that would work, I think, better for the Vietnam side of things. I'm trying to make it so that it's not complicated, so that people don't sort of think, oh my gosh, you know, because it's supposed to be all intuitive. But those are the things that I'm sort of thinking about actually, and I'm quite excited about that, really. But there's so much to do. I'm just thinking, you know, there's so much more scope this game could offer, and I've got lots of ideas. It's just finding the time to do it, you know. And then on top of that, also just writing the scenarios, paying attention to what's happening in the world, you know, finding new scenarios to write up, and then actually just even playing them. I mean, playing them is like a big chunk out of my time. it's one of the things that's the easiest of all because I enjoy it. You know, sort of for me, this is a break. You know, that's why I don't want them to go for too long. I'm having a little coffee break and I play this game. This is fun, you know, as opposed to I go back and do some work. So this is the easy part, but even that is still, you know, sometimes I don't have the time to sort of take a break. Even so, it's still mentally demanding. Yeah. So anyway, we're doing this. I don't know whose turn. It's the Congo's turn. So we've got these UN forces. Well, let's face it, they can only go up this road really in the first instance. So. Now the question is, do we want to attack here? And I think we do. We just want to start pushing these guys because what we don't want to do is have them start entrenching because they start to get quite difficult. 0 damage. Well, that's 0 damage. Wow, these helicopters are rubbish. Okay, now it's going to be over 1 to 1 or 2 to 1. I think it'll be a 2 to 1. It might be less. It might be more because they're in the open, not in a village or entrenched. So let's just see. 4 to 1. That's good. So this is why I'm doing it, because getting them here is actually okay. You know, once they get entrenched in a town, the odds start to actually become. Oh, look at that! I managed to. You know, you can do it like that. So we've done 2 4 to 1 attacks, and you might be thinking, "Oh, this is so easy." Well, it is supposed to be easy. These are just rebels. But yesterday I played it, and if you get 2 of these on top in the trench, they're actually difficult to get out. I had everything, so I've upped. You know, well, to be honest, yesterday I only had one of these stacks. So I put an additional one in because I just thought it was just too stupid. Because there's no way that the Congo should lose this, because it's just a historical reflection of some angry fishermen. But they were winning, you know, and it was sort of like. So I upped the Congo strength. So we've taken that now. But they've sort of won there, so do we have any more movement? Yes, we do. Look at that. And they can follow through with another attack, so this one should be even better. Yep, so push them out of the way. I think yesterday I was a bit unlucky because I just kept getting, it was 2 to 1 attacks, and I just kept getting exchanges. Exchange. Movement. So we're doing well here, really, pushing them back, and I think it's quite a reasonable way of doing it, a reasonable sort of reflection of, a reasonable simulation of what I might expect to happen. So they've taken this place, Likwangbala. Now the thing is, do we want to move south? Because we haven't taken Yamamba. But I'm thinking there might be a war effort to sort of get involved with down here. Oh, we'll do it like this. Okay, start moving these refugees. I'm in 2 minds about the off-map exits, because once they've gone off, then they're not really part of the game anymore, and add to the ambience of what's happening, having all these units there. And the only reason they're there is to add to the complication of the thing. Quite often I don't put refugees on in war scenarios, even though there clearly were lots, but for the scale of things and the type of argument, to have 168,000 people displaced seemed quite significant, so I've applied them. It wasn't as though there was gens where they weren't going around killing these people, they were just, I don't know what they were actually doing. The Wikipedia thing should sort of detail that, but you know, they're obviously being displaced, so that's that. Well, Congo people are actually doing quite well, so maybe I'll have to trim them down a bit, because I did put these in as extras, and I think there's another lot to come in. So one up this way, and this one will go that way. The question is, do we attack this hex? I think we will. And I'm just going to put in some helicopter power. So this is a 3-to-1, but I push them out. Now here, I don't think it's really want to attack into there just yet. I mean, I could try it, see what the odds are, but there's obviously more in there, so it's going to be less. And they're in a town, a village, so you know, I think I'm going to leave that as an attack at the moment. So we've taken that. There's just a massive stack of units there. Look. We'll leave them to try and recover. Obviously they're going to recover, so we've got to chase them because they're at 4.8. We're going to send this unit this way, and he's gone across the river. We really want to commit him there now. I suppose we can bring him up here and bring him back down here. So I'd like to chase him and actually destroy him. Yeah, so we're pushing him back quite happily now. I would emphasise that I think this could go the other way, or it could be harder. I mean, I think we've done quite well. Maybe I shouldn't have put 2 of these units in. Maybe I should have only just put 1 in. You know, game balance isn't a primary concern, but I think it's an issue. I mean, I just need to sort of make sure it's not stupid. But we've taken all of this, so that's all. Theirs now. So he's going to go for Yamamba. He'll be there next turn. Now obviously they're going to outflank and come across this ford here, across the Ubangi River into Mobambo. So we want to take that out, or we want to defend that. He's just going to try and recover. There'll probably be eliminated next turn. Is it better to run away? Possibly. Draw them away. Should have maybe done that before. At least he'll be alive. And they're going to try and just hold there. We could attack. Maybe at like 15 and they'd be like about possibly a 1-to-1. We could attack these units. I'm tempted to actually do that. The reason being that I'm actually maybe not. It puts the position at risk. Let's just get these units off the map. Okay, so we don't want to chase them anymore. We should be able to recover this next turn. So he's free to get onto the road. We also sort of lost that crossing point, but I think we use this as a task force of some sort. Now, the zones of control were messing that up. It shouldn't really extend across the river, but I haven't really sort of sorted that out yet. So we can then start to sort of use this road to get to these open areas, which means that they've not really got that as a defensive point now. Although they could probably cross next turn into there. And that'll block that road. But here, we've also now got this as an option. And we could get attacked from that front as well. So I think what we're going to try and do is put some pressure on these units. But is it a bit premature? Because what I don't want to do is lose. So if we don't attack, those helicopter attacks will be at 0.55. He'll be recovered, and so will he. So they're all dug in as well. No, I'm not going to attack. I don't want to lose. Let's see. He's going to recover. They're just going to hold. So we're going to need to get to a crunch. That crunch is here. Oh. We can definitely. Oh, this hex is done. Isn't it? The river hex goes onto the other side. But what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to try and surround them. I mean, losing one unit, we still go 0, but okay, so 1.5, 0.9, 1.2. This is probably as good as it's going to get. Well, it could get better, obviously, but I think this is pretty good. See, this is the thing. That was a 1-to-1. So this, you know, what if you start failing on that, because irregulars don't get a depression from an exchange, but these units do. So they're all now 1 depressed, and if they get that 2 more times, they'll be at 3. You know, they start to become significantly depressed. Didn't move these refugees. He's just going to stay there. He's going to set up another turn to recover. I'm just going to hold there. But ideally, to be quite honest, this is another thing. We can attack. No, we can attack this unit. And very possibly a bloody nose. The only problem is we have now actually lost our defences. But if we push this unit back as well, eliminated it. 5-to-1 and a DE. We actually eliminated that unit. Now you can see why I've given them some extra units. Once they get stuck like that, they become a little more formidable. You know, we took those are 2 chances. I was hesitant in doing that, but that elimination has significantly affected them. And you know, further, he's at depression 4 now. You know, so he's not going to be able to get any more surrounds because it weakens his, you know, his overall structure. So they've got to be start thinking now. When they can push it. Now they're not in defence, they're not entrenched now, so maybe that was a mistake. Three. So this is the Great Battle of Gualambu. The Great Battle of Gualambu is now taking place with joint Congo and Monco forces. This is it. And an exchange was not what they wanted. I was going to say an exchange is not what I wanted before, but that was not what we wanted, because that was probably the only chance of, because obviously a DR they would be eliminated, but they held their ground. And so this guy, they didn't get it, because it's an exchange, they weren't affected, but these guys were. So he's on a 5 now. It might even be worth bringing him back. It might even be worth bringing back all the rebels. Let's move these guys out of the way. So I don't want to attack that. I'm not strong enough to attack that UN unit. That's actually stupid, because that unit wasn't that way around. We should have attacked that unit with this unit. Oh well. Right. Well, I think the word Goodbye Kansas is explains too much, so maybe. Well, we'll start off with this. I'm going to use everything because I don't want to take any chances. I wouldn't mind pushing him back and just trying to eliminate him, because that would mean that at the very least he won't be able to get the surrounds. I'll start bringing him forward. Yeah, I'm going to do that. That was what I wanted. That was what that investment was for. And this attack here is going to be slightly less, but hopefully I'll start punching them away. Why is he still there? He should have routed. Something didn't happen there. I hate it when that happens, because that means hours of troubleshooting. Or am I missing something? No, I'm pretty sure that it didn't work. Okay, well, continue to move these guys away. Oh, I'm going to use the helicopter power here, I think. This is a last ditch effort. So much so that I'm going to bring him over. Let's just bring him over. Everything. Got it. DR. in theory we remove that first, but so we've now taken that place. Now that we've got them out of there, it should be a little easier moving forward. So we can push along this line as well. Yeah. We don't really want to attack into there. We could do. We've got 3 units to do it with. Considering it's 53 minutes, I'm going to have to finish soon. And some of these are actually, I'm going to knock at them because it's 7, so it's irrelevant. Well, he retreated to there and, oh, I don't know. Here. I don't know who retreated where. Oh, one of them retreated there. He was already there, and these 2 retreated there. Okay. Okay. So. Some real fighting. And time is almost over. That's the Umbrella Rebels. What do I do? I really want to get him over here. I think we're going to... So we could attack with everything. We're gambling on getting a good DR, not an exchange. They didn't want an exchange because they do take depressions on an exchange when they're attacking. Well, this is the last effort. 0-0. So we destroyed 2 of them. 1-to-1. That was a 1-to-1. I did it because it's 56 minutes. So we're now basically pushing them back. I don't want to do that. The results are not good. But here, I might be able to push across this river. And an AR. No, not good. That's that. I think we're going to... Let's just end the turns. We've got all the colours. I think we're going to do it. But that was super tight. I'm not going to do any more because I think to take it the next day, I'm going to have to think. And I've only got 2.5 minutes and I don't have time to sort of do strategic, clever thinking. But I think that was what, although I think it is a bit rushed, because I'm also doing a video, I want to keep the momentum going. I think the game balance sort of came to its fore to some extent. How realistic it is, I don't know. But it was quite interesting, really. I mean, really, they shouldn't stand a chance against the UN forces. What is them just being angry fishermen? But obviously they've taken all this, and you've got to do it's an exercise of sort of going back and taking it all back. But they're not walkovers, So anyway, I'll leave it at that. Remember, if you want to play, you can sign up and play this yourself and see how you fare. Play it with other people over the internet and all that. And I will speak to you later. Cheerio!